The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Well, the game is over. The jig is up. What other ways can I describe this? For years, and we knew this was coming, at least when you heard the oral arguments, the Supreme Court. For years, the Democrats used the Voting Rights Act to their advantage through the courts. They wanted to racially gerrymander using the courts, not really to give minorities a vote or something like that, but to get more Democrats in office in Republican states. So they played this game, and they got a little cocky. They got a little arrogant because they did it in Alabama. They did it in Louisiana, where Alabama is such a great example. You all know this, but to kind of remind you of our story, we had redistricting after the 2020 census. The map was pretty similar to what they've been in the past. But the activists out there decided to sue, saying it was against the Voting Rights Act, forced us to change it. Well, Republicans just had enough. They fought this in court, and it seems like that day is over. So that means a lot of these states are going to do the direct opposite. You're now going to have even less seats because you wanted to play this game, and it went through the courts, and now the Supreme Court has weighed in. So, sorry. You're getting exactly what you deserve here. We'll talk more about this. Obviously, the big Supreme Court case yesterday dealing with redistricting. It affects, the whole country, states across the country, but it affects us here in Alabama as well. You're listening to the Yaffee Program. This is the show where you can count on the latest news, the important guests, and the best analysis, all for your morning commute here on News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. Also coming up on the show, it's one of those days, once again, where we have a lot to get to. I'll give you more details on the latest news across the state with the Alabama bullet points. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to speak with Seth Burton. He's actually a Huntsville native. He is running for the U.S. Senate. I first met him when I hosted the forum, the Senate Candidate Forum in Madison. Pretty good guy, actually. Didn't know who I was, though. I was very offended by that. But outside of that, I thought he did a pretty good job, to be honest. So I'll talk to him about his campaign, get his take on the issues. We also have to discuss, yes, the latest in Iran. Are we going to bomb them again yet? What is the deal here? And apparently the Ayatollah is finally saying something. So I guess he's alive. So we'll discuss that later on in the show. Former Alabama Republican Party Chairman John Wall, who is also now a candidate for lieutenant governor, he's going to be joining me on the show. He's calling for a special session. He's not the only one, but many Alabama politicos are calling for a special session for redistricting to basically draw out Democrats entirely now because they believe Republicans need to win to gain more control of Congress and the future of the country is at stake. So we'll talk about that with him later on. And Walker is here producing once again. Walker, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I got to start my day off with a big glass of chocolate milk, so I'm doing good.
It's the little things in life, the little things that you get to enjoy. What do you use for chocolate?
Most of the time I use Nesquik.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm switching things up today. So putting you on the spot here a little bit, but
all right.
We're going to try to do What's Trending at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
John Wall is going to join me at 10:30. It's the only time he could do.
I saw.
So I was like, okay, well, we'll just do What's Trending earlier. So a different audience will get to hear your What's Trending than usual today, Walker.
I guess we'll see what happens.
So no pressure.
Thanks.
But yeah, no, that should be a lot of fun. By the way, I always end the show with the Yaffee Program Rewind, and we always take your text messages on the Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN, brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. So we had the Supreme Court case yesterday, And I'm going to read some of this, actually. This is the editors from the National Review, but I thought they put it pretty well here. They said the era of racial gerrymandering to segregate black voters in their own districts has been a long, ugly chapter in American life that vividly illustrates how a remedy for racial injustice can curdle into a racket that produces injustices of its own. One side effect of drawing districts for racial reasons is that it institutionalizes race-conscious politics while isolating racial groups from effective political competition. This yields politicians who get elected by racial appeals and stay in office through scandal and senility unto death. But the Supreme Court yesterday said this is done. And I'll talk a little bit about how it could affect Alabama, although the governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, says we're going to have to wait a little bit longer than some want to, and I'll explain why in a moment if you missed it. But it continues on. It says, Justice Samuel Alito's opinion for a 6-3 court along the now customary ideological lines in Louisiana versus Callis went back to first principles. The Constitution almost never permits the federal government or a state to discriminate on the basis of race. The court's redistricting precedent have led legislatures and lower courts to forget that, quote, allowing race to play any part in government decision-making represents a departure from the constitutional rule that applies in almost every other context. Said while the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act was designed to enforce the Constitution, not collide with it. But instead, lower courts have sometimes applied this court's precedents in a way that forces states to engage in the very race-based discrimination that the Constitution forbids. So what's the point of this? Well, what is going on here? The fact is, in Alabama and other states, the activists knew that, well, these activist groups are very left-wing. Their whole goal is to get more Democrats elected. They can't do that through regular redistricting because, well, a state like Alabama is a supermajority Republican state. It is perfectly legal, by the way, for a state legislature to draw districts to favor their political party. Both sides do it all across this country and have since the beginning of the republic. There's nothing illegal about it. That's politics. But many of these left-wing activist groups realized they could play this game. They could take it to the courts. They could claim racism because that's what we do now. Anytime something happens you disagree with, you just say, racist, racist. So that's what they would do. They would go to the court and say, racist, racist. And unfortunately, for years, too many courts would say, okay, you're right, and force states like Alabama to redraw maps to elect more Democrats. They would say, oh, no, it's for minority representation, but let's get to the fact of the matter here, the core of the issue here. They did it to elect more Democrats, and they were successful, but they got a little carried away. And now that there is a new Supreme Court makeup here, they thought they could still do it and even do it more, which is why Alabama had to draw another Democratic district for Congress. And now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the jig is up, so to speak. Now, the National Review editors continue on here. It says, critics of partisan gerrymandering should welcome this decision, too. True in the short run, given the feverish partisan climate of the moment, it may lead some Republican legislatures to redraw their congressional maps. Whether or not they can do so in time for this cycle is another question. But the decision's history involving an effort by Democrats to throw out Louisiana's original post-2020 map is also a reminder that intra-decade redistricting didn't begin with Texas. Now, in the long run, however, with the race-conscious districts off the table, this ruling promises to put Republican states on the same footing as Democratic ones in dealing with each state's political minorities. That can lead one of two ways, either to mutually maximal partisanship or to incentives to strike some sort of explicit or implicit compromise that produces a stable equilibrium. In either event, giving both sides of the aisle the same tools and the same stakes is healthy and brings political competition out in the open where voters can judge it. Political actors operate under a single set of rules and courts play a much smaller role. So the point is that, yes, Democrat states could redistrict more. Republican states will redistrict more in Republicans' favor. but at least you don't have the courts getting involved, sticking their nose in an area where they're not supposed to. And that was the problem. Left-wing activist groups got arrogant. They screamed racist because that's what they do all the time for everything. Took it to the courts. It benefited them for a while. But because we have better justices in the Supreme Court, the game is over. And now it's up to Alabama and other states to change things. Now, the issue we have here, and I'll have more details on this in the bullet points, but Governor Kay Ivey, because we've had multiple lawmakers here in the state call for let's redistrict now, right away, special session. Governor Ivey, call a special session. I mean, Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth said this: Alabama Republicans control both U.S. Senate seats, all constitutional offices, every state judgeship, and have legislative supermajority, so it makes perfect sense for us to hold every congressional seat, too. We are a bright red state, and our congressional map should show it. But this is what Kay Ivey said in response. She said, litigation surrounding Alabama's congressional districts is pending before the U.S. Supreme Court, and Alabama is currently under a court order prohibiting the use of new congressional districts until after the 2030 census. While we are not in a position to have a special session at this time, I hope in light of this new decision, the court is favorable to Alabama. So basically, you have the Supreme Court that has set a new precedent. But the lower courts still have an order, a ruling involved here, and we have to wait for them to follow the Supreme Court precedent and change it into our favor to redistrict, or for the Supreme Court to step in again in this case, and based on the precedent, allow Alabama to do redistricting. It's just, can all that be done before the next election, the midterms? That's where it's kind of doubtful. Want to know what you think? Tell me on our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. Got the Alabama bullet points coming up next here on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Welcome back to the Yaffee program. I am your voice of reason, your conservative conscience, and I'm here Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. You can also listen online, WVNN.com, or any of the streaming smart devices, whatever it might be. Joining me at the bottom of the hour, by the way, Seth Burton. He is running for the U.S. Senate. Haven't had him on the show yet, but I met him at that Senate candidate forum a couple weeks ago, so looking forward to that interview. Right now, though, let's get to those headlines. Once again, we have the Alabama bullet points.
Alabama bullet points. Today's headlines from around the Yellowhammer State.
Sponsored by Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Number 4 today, Tommy Tuberville targets education fraud in what is called his Ghost Students Bill. So U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is also running for governor, has introduced the No Aid for Ghost Students Act to combat fraud in federal higher education financial aid. Now, the legislation targets what are called ghost students, which are fraudsters who use stolen or fake identities to submit applications for aid, to enroll in classes they never attend, and pocket thousands of dollars in Pell Grants and student loans before institutions detect the scam. Now, Tuberville is a co-chair of the Senate Task Force on Education Waste, Fraud, and Abuse, emphasized that legitimate students should not have their aid undermined by such schemes. The bill would require colleges to verify identities in suspicious cases and mandate that the Department of Education use an identity fraud detection system to screen every application. Number 3 today, State Representative Ernie Yarbrough says that the Alabama Teachers Union payroll deductions are just funding left-wing causes. Of course, he's exactly right on this. So in a recent interview, Alabama State Representative Ernie Yarbrough out of Trinity sharply criticized teacher union payroll deductions that funnel money through the Alabama Education Association and National Education Association. And that money goes to, left-wing causes. He described the practice as a classic example of bait and switch. arguing that dues collected by Alabama teachers intended by state law for educational support, classroom resources, and teacher assistance are instead being siphoned off to fund over $660 million in national union contributions to Democratic politicians, pro-abortion groups, LGBTQ plus activism, DEI initiatives, climate change efforts, and other left-wing causes. And number 2 today, Attorney General Steve Marshall applauds what he called the momentous Supreme Court redistricting decision. So Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, who is running for the U.S. Senate as well, applauded the U.S. Supreme Court's April 29th decision in the Louisiana v. Callis, which ruled that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and the 14th and 15th Amendments neither require nor permit states to draw congressional districts based on race, whether to create an additional minority-majority district or dilute minority votes. Now, the court held that states must use race-neutral criteria when redistricting, and that plaintiffs bear the burden of proving intentional racial discrimination separate from other legitimate goals, such as protecting incumbents. Now, Marshall described the ruling as a watershed moment that ends race-based gerrymandering and racial quota systems, confirming Alabama's long-standing position. Now, this stems from a lower court ruling as well. We have more details on this later. And number 1, actually, I have more details on it now. Governor Kay Ivey says Alabama currently is not in a position to have a special session at this time on redistricting. So Governor Kay Ivey stated that Alabama is currently not in a position to hold a special session, a legislative session on redistricting. This follows a recent 6-3 U.S. Supreme Court ruling in a Louisiana case declaring race-based redistricting unconstitutional, which could impact Alabama's ongoing congressional map litigation. Now, Alabama's 2023 map was challenged and replaced by a court-drawn version for 2024 elections, resulting in 1 Democratic seat, and a federal court has barred further changes until after the 2030 census. Now, while Ivey did applaud this recent decision by the Supreme Court and expressed hope for a favorable outcome in Alabama's pending cases, she noted the ruling does not yet resolve the state's situation. Other Republican leaders, including Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth and legislative leaders, pushed for a map with all 7 Republican seats, and they want a special session called immediately to do that. And if it gets challenged in the courts, they say, so be it, challenge it in the courts. So we'll talk more about this because one of the politicos I'm talking about, former Republican Party Chairman John Wall, who's running for lieutenant governor, he is calling for this as well. Let's go straight to a special session. This isn't just happening in Alabama. I saw that Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, who's running for governor of Tennessee, she's their current senator, she said the same thing for them. They should immediately redistrict. We have Florida that has already done this. We have Texas that was working on this. Louisiana, obviously, that's where this case stems from. So there you go. We're going to talk more about this next as well with Seth Burton, who's running for the U.S. Senate. Right now, I want to tell you about the sponsor of the Bullet Points. It's Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Always glad, always happy to tell you about them because you're gonna be happy when you go visit, when you go shop at Larry's Pistol and Pawn. They have a great selection of so many different things. You walk into the 18,000 square foot facility. The left of the store, that's where you see new and used firearms, accessories, ammunition. Middle of the store, lots of miscellaneous items. They have musical instruments, clothes, all kinds of cool stuff you can find. You go to the right of the store, and that's where the best selection of jewelry in town can be found. And they have so much to choose from. Maybe you're looking to get engaged pretty soon. They have diamonds available, engagement rings available for great prices. Or you just want to get your mom something nice, they can do that as well. Larry's Pistol and Pawn in Madison off Greenbrier Exit 3. It's next to the Big Rusty Water Tower. Another location in Huntsville off North Memorial Parkway. And you can find out more on the website. Go right now, pistolandpawn.com. That is pistolandpawn.com. And when you go, let them know you heard about it from Yaffee. Back in a moment here in the Yaffee program.
The Yaffee program.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk with The Vince Show.
It is a reflection of your response to this program that we get to take this thing to the next level. These gigantic shows. This is going to be so much fun. It's unbelievable.
In-depth interviews, live caller interactions, and a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
I've got updates. I've got big stories. We'll sort through the truth of what's really going on. So buckle up. Here it comes.
The Vince Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
We are back here on the Yaffee program. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Glad you have joined the show. And of course, if you miss any of it live, the podcast is always available for you. We make it easy. What can I say at WVNN.com. So a few weeks ago, I hosted a candidate forum for those running for the U.S. Senate in Alabama. We did it in Madison. And for the first time, I was introduced and met Seth Burton, who is one of the candidates for the Senate. He is a two-time submarine commander, also an expert in nuclear power for war, peace, and prosperity. He is a Huntsville native and, as I mentioned, a candidate for the U.S. Senate. And he joins me on the show right now, Mr. Seth Burton. Thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, Yaffee. It's great to be on, and it's hard to believe it's already been 2 weeks since we were at the forum together. So time's flying by.
Yeah, indeed. So I just, to start off, before we get to the issues, I just want to get some of your background, why you decided to run for the Senate.
No, that's perfect. Well, you already kind of highlighted my professional background. I grew up here in North Alabama, started off in Marshall County and then settled in Madison County, finished up high school here, met my wife now 34 years, and we dated through high school and finished up, the original education of college at UAH, got a chemical engineering degree there, and then joined the Navy and drove submarines around the world for the last 3 decades. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'm a father of 3 boys and a grandfather of 2. So as we all are, at this point, looking at our republic, we're trying to figure out how to contribute and how to preserve our republic. So that's, as soon as I retired, got back here, found a home for my wife. I saw this opportunity come up, and I really, a couple of main reasons I got in is one, when you serve in the Navy, for all those veterans out there, you understand you serve apolitically. We don't talk about politics. We don't pick sides. We serve apolitically. And so that's what I did for 3 decades. But that allows you to independently observe what's happening in our government, and because you're executing the missions that are given you, but you also see what's going on in Washington. And I saw, just trust just plummeting over decades. I was in 3 decades, and just, in 2 generations, trust went from, almost 3 in 4 people trusted in government to now it's less than 1 in 5. So that means there's something fundamentally wrong with how our government's functioning and who we're sending to it. And so since that trust factor, and I come from a background of high trust in the nuclear world, the submarining world, I understand what true accountability and integrity and transparency look like. I just decided to enter the race because I looked, once I settled my wife, I saw the opportunity, and the fact that North Alabama hasn't had a senator elected from up here since I was just a few months old back in 1972 when John Sparkman was elected. So I knew I could bring something completely different as a candidate to the race. I knew it would be, statistically a long shot trying to do that in 3 or 4 months when everybody else has been running for, since last summer. But that doesn't mean that voters shouldn't have options. So I just really wanted to give voters an option for somebody that has high-tech background and has already been working for them for 3 decades, and they just didn't know it. So that's the essence of it.
Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit more about your campaign and what separates you from the other candidates in a moment. But because of your expertise, what you did for, say, 3 decades, I did want to ask you about the war in Iran because, I believe that it's been a very successful military campaign. But that thorny issue of protecting the Strait of Hormuz, we have the blockade going on right now. What's your take on the war generally? And, I mean, can we win? Can we get a victory to a point where we can open up the strait again? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a very complex situation, and I have operated over there for a significant portion of my career in the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Gulf, Straits of Hormuz. It's a heavy submarining area. Just the missions we've done there, based on the geopolitical history of the region and CENTCOM. So lots of experience there, and to your point, the military has executed a phenomenal, campaign so far. Just, we've been working toward this for decades, preparing the battle space, understanding it, training for what we would do. And, I told my sailors and officers, multiple times that if we don't get called to do it, someone we train will be called to do it, and we'll be ready when it happens. And they have. So the militarily, you're right, it's been a fantastic operation. But what we're seeing is, war is more than just, military strength and winning on the military side. It's a political struggle, and it gets into geography, it gets into deception, it gets into alliances, and it's just very complex. And so what we're seeing now is that, Iran, based on the unique, this is their backyard, and so all they have to have is the threats of, whether it's drone activity or, anti-shipping missiles. All they have to have is a threat, and based on their proximity to the Straits of Hormuz, they can exert their will in the Straits of Hormuz and kind of hold the world hostage. So that makes it very challenging. And so, even though we are just exponentially stronger militarily and as a nation, war is an ugly and complex thing, and it ultimately ends up, every time you go into any sort of conflict, you're going to have day-to-day consequences. Our lives are going to be different, and it just depends on how different based on the scale of the war that we're in. So you always have to be very careful to go into it. And so I think to answer getting out of it, it's going to be very tricky. We're at that point now where it's not just about military overwhelming them, it's about the political, agreements, because, Clausewitz told us that war is just an extension of politics. So we just have to figure out diplomatically and using the strength of our military to ultimately get a resolution that it benefits us long-term as a nation, especially in the bigger picture with China and everything else.
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit. Do you think the war was justified? Do you agree with the president's decision to strike Iran?
Yeah, that's a great question, Yaffee. And, you probably remember how I answered it in the forum. I'm very careful to, lay judgment down on someone when they have a lot more information than I do. I'm just used to that in the classified world. I know a lot more based on things that I've been exposed to in the intelligence world, where sometimes you just don't have the full set of information. So what I do know, if you call it justified, if the question is whether it's justified, I think there's definitely justification for going in and, taking away their ability to work toward a nuclear weapon, which that's a whole different subject on how hard that is. But just to try to take away that threat that the world, and particularly the Middle East and Israel, had hanging over their head from a very, apocalyptic sort of regime. So there's justification for that. As you heard in the forum, though, my standard for preemptive conflict, because there are consequences no matter what we say and how much, how superior we are, there are consequences for war. So my standard for a preemptive sort of conflict is very high. And so I would have been, based on what I know and know the complexity of war and how the other side always has a vote and the geographic complexity of it, I would have been, it would have been a high standard for me to support what we did. But once we do commit to it, I'm all in to bring it to resolution. We have to be unified as a people, give the president support to bring a resolution to it as quickly as possible so we can restore normalcy.
Speaking with Seth Burton, he is running for the U.S. Senate, running against Barry Moore, Steve Marshall, Jared Hudson, and others. Seth, did want to ask you about some other topics as well. Right now, there is a battle in the Senate over the funding when it comes to Department of Homeland Security, and also the SAVE Act. There's talk about doing it through reconciliation. Would you be for, say, blowing up the filibuster to get it done? Tuberville's called for that. Barry Moore has called for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm absolutely. This is another example of an original Senate rule that is just kind of twisted from its original intent and what what it was meant to be, to give the minority a chance to debate an issue, but then bring it to closure, that debate period to closure, so you can actually get to a vote that's based on majority rules. So I think the filibuster has gone now to where it's a minority veto, which it was never its intention, and it keeps legislation from coming to a vote of the representatives of the people. And so I am a supporter of, at this point in time, removing the filibuster. Maybe one step is to make it actually like they talk about, to where they have to actually talk and they can't just put this essentially veto up there. But I'm in the camp of the filibuster has run its course. It's devolved from its original intent in the early 1900s, and it either needs to have to be completely rewritten as a Senate rule with more strict rules, or just done away with, because it's stopping votes that the people need to have their representatives take.
Speaking with Seth Burton, he's running for the U.S. Senate. Do you want to ask you real quick, just a couple of minutes left here, but what do you think separates you from the other candidates? You are a little bit of an underdog right now, so talk about that and what separates you.
Yeah. No, I am an underdog. Just joined the race in January, but I'm in the tier of candidates that really aren't supported by big power brokers, big money. So that's a first differentiator. My loyalty to the Constitution, loyalty to the individual sovereign citizen, is just going to be higher. And then from an experience point of view, what I try to tell people is who can best complement Senator Britt in the two-senator combo to represent the state the best. And I am the only true North Alabama candidate that brings that perspective to it. And then from an experience point of view, I just have the right balance. She's very heavy in the legal and political experience. I'm very heavy in national security experience, high-tech experience, nuclear energy experience. And so I just think it provides, I'm differentiated in those areas well over the other candidates that are more in the business, have one doctor in the race or more just exceptional political experience. That's what differentiates me. And I just want the voters to really look at everyone, all six of us, and don't go for just, default to who the establishment has given you as the top three picks that they've funded and backed. So just really look at everyone, because there's some really good candidates in this race. And I challenge, North Alabama particularly, to look at their own candidate and see if I could represent their interest in the Senate.
Seth Burton, he is running for the U.S. Senate. People want to find out about your campaign. How can they do that?
Yeah, the best place to do is go to SethBurtonForSenate.com, just the website, and then we have social media that you can follow from there, and we're putting out videos on YouTube and just sharing things on Facebook, mainly just getting the word out, because that's the goal. Is when you come in late and you have little low name recognition, it's just about spreading the fire as fast as possible to let people know they have a choice. And North Alabama hasn't had a senator here since '72, so I hope they can see this as their opportunity.
Seth, really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope to bring you on again in the future.
That would be great. Look forward to seeing you again soon, Yaffee.
All right, there you go. If you want to react to that, is he your guy? Maybe. Kind of, like I said, he's an underdog, not as well known, but maybe that's what you're looking for. You can tell me. We have our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN, and we'll be back here in a moment on the Yaffee program.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
We're back here on the Yaffee program, making radio great again. That's what the T-shirt says that you all wear. I knew you all wear it, so you're welcome. That's what I try to do. Gosh, I see here that Iran's supreme leader has put out a new statement. Can we just start bombing them again? Is that too harsh to say? Anyway, according to Fox News, it says the supreme leader of Iran, despite questions of his health and active hold on the country in crisis, is signaling no retreat on the country's core military programs, even as President Donald Trump seeks peace. So the new Ayatollah, while reportedly in questionable health, issued a Persian Gulf Day statement online, vowing the Islamic Republic would protect its nuclear and missile capabilities and drawing a hard line as tensions remain high over the strait. He said, by God's help and power, the bright future of the Persian Gulf region will be a future without America, one serving the progress, comfort, and prosperity of its people. Yeah, as you slaughter thousands of your own people for disagreeing with you politically, yeah. He said this as well. He said, we and our neighbors across the waters of the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman share a common destiny. Foreigners who come from thousands of kilometers away to act with greed and malice there have no place in it except at the bottom of its waters. Okay. Sure. What about the people in your own country that wanted to have a say and you slaughtered them? Yeah, we might need to start bombing them again. Turn it into the Strait of Trump. That's what I say. By the way, Trump did comment on this yesterday. He's still trying to make a deal on all of this. Walker, if you can, play a Trump cut 2 for me. Skip down to cut 2. Do you have it, Walker?
It was frozen for a second, but now I have it.
Oh, okay. Of course it was.
The blockade is genius, okay? The blockade has been 100% foolproof. It shows how good our Navy is, I can tell you that. Nobody's going to play games.
All right, there you go. He's saying the blockade is genius and foolproof. It's kind of what I've been saying, that he doesn't really seem to want to bomb anymore because he just believes that the blockade is enough. Not sure it's going to be enough, to be honest with you. Now, Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of War, spoke in front of Congress yesterday, was grilled by some, praised by others. But go on and play the Pete Hegseth cut for me.
The $1.5 trillion budget will ensure the United States continues to maintain the world's most powerful and capable military as we grapple with a complex threat environment across multiple theaters. President Trump, unlike other presidents, has had the courage to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, and he's ironclad in that. For 2 months, this president has stared them down. He's going to get a better deal than anyone ever has and ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. I know the American people support that mission, despite your loose talk and words like quagmire.
Yeah, I think he's right on that. By the way, it's just annoying. I mean, the Ayatollah says it, that he wants to keep his nuclear and missile capabilities. So we're back to this conversation. Trump says, hey, we'll stop. Just open up the strait. Give up your nukes. The Ayatollah says, no, we're going to keep our nukes. And we're like, no, you're going to have to give them up if you want this to end. No, we'll keep them. And it just goes on and on and on. Now, there were reports as well yesterday that Trump is telling some of his leaders, some of those in the administration, military leaders, that we might have to be in this for a little while, at least in terms of the blockade, which obviously some Republicans are a little nervous about that because they would prefer this to be over so gas prices could go back down. Well, this is kind of interesting here. According to Fox as well, it says the U.S. Army's Dark Eagle hypersonic missile could be deployed to the Middle East for potential use against Iran. That sounds good. I like it. Let's see what we can do with this. I'm okay. I think we're gonna have to bomb them again. I'm sorry. I know I've been saying this. I thought maybe it would happen on my birthday. Get some fireworks for my birthday. They're playing games. It's gonna take more military might and effort. I know it's hard. I know it sucks that gas prices are high. I know the effect it's gonna have on the economy. But just imagine if they had a nuclear weapon. How much worse that would be for the world economy. All right, coming up next, we're going to switch things up because we got What's Trending coming up. That's because John Wall wants to join me, and he has to join me at 10:30 to talk about this redistricting. So much more to get to on the Yaffee program. Stay with us. Back in a moment.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Action. Next roll with Vernon Davis.
I'm your host, Vernon Davis. Okay, y'all, thank you. That's enough. Today, we have Dietrich Wise.
Through my example, on the field, off the field, during game day, in practice, that was one way that I led, because then it led to success.
Next roll isn't about what's next. It's about why they do it.
My man, Bobby Bones.
Like, I've had a lot of stuff happen, bad and good. And so I don't have any fear of mixing it up.
That's powerful, man.
Next roll with Vernon Davis. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Yaffee.
The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
It's a redistricting bonanza that's going to happen across the country. Are you all ready for it? Does that sound exciting enough for you? I don't know. We're going to talk more about this later on. I promise. It's the big story of the day. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act does not allow these states to do gerrymandering just based solely on race. So John Wall is going to join me later. He is the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party. He is running for lieutenant governor. He's the former chairman, also head of the Alabama Public Service Library Board, which is interesting. Also a butterfly farmer. I kid you not, that is his day job. Never met one until I met him. So there you go. But since he's joining me at 10:30, I figured we'd just do what's trending now. Huh? For a new audience. Sometimes you people, you don't get to hear it. You don't get to listen at 10:30, but Walker is here. So let's just go ahead. Just change it up. We got What's Trending with Walker.
Keeping you up to date with all that's trending in your world.
Oh, they have the internet on computers now.
You guys know how to post videos to Facebook?
It's What's Trending.
And it's sponsored by Coleman Furniture Market because they always have the latest trending in furniture. Now, if you have never heard me talk about this store before, listen up. It is the best furniture store anywhere. Most of the furniture in my house is from Coleman Furniture Market. That's right, my living room furniture, my bedroom furniture, I have dining room furniture from there, my office furniture, all from Coleman Furniture Market. But you got to see what they got. You got to see the latest deals they have and much, much more. It's pretty easy to do. Go to their store in the heart of Coleman, Alabama. Find out more information, though, ColemanFurnitureMarket.com. You can also see some of their new inventory on Facebook and Instagram. And the way it works is if you see it in their showroom, the selection is huge, you can take it home or they can deliver it to anywhere in the state. And it's a big deal because a lot of other furniture stores, they'll have a display and then you'll say, well, I want that. And they'll say, okay, we'll order it. You get it in 6 months. That's lame. Why would you want to wait that long? So go to Coleman Furniture Market today. Get it as soon as you want it. And by the way, when you do, let them know Yaffee sent you. All right, Walker, what's number 5 today for What's Trending?
Number 5 today, people are talking about changes Costco has made to their $1.50 hot dog combo.
Wait, I had that recently. What were the change? I didn't notice a change.
For some reason, it's worth talking about that.
Okay.
Instead of it just being a hot dog and soda, you can now get hot dog and water.
Wait, you can get water, but you can still get a soda.
Yes. Because apparently you weren't able to get water with it before.
I'm guessing like bottled water is what I'm guessing.
Yeah. And a lot of people have like turned down the soda cup and just paid more to get a bottle of water.
Wow, okay. You get a cup of water probably if they wanted, but too fancy. Can't drink out of the tap. So they have to get bottled water. I mean, I had it recently. It was good. You know, it'd been a long time since I had a Costco hot dog, so I tried it. It was good.
Yeah, my friends have, I think it's their Sunday ritual to, go grocery shopping, and they'll start off their day with a Costco hot dog.
That's good. I mean, the pizza's good too. You can get that.
Yeah, I thought their pizza's pretty good too. And then they have this like chicken hot pocket sort of thing that's really long.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I know and the ice cream is good. You get the little ice cream cup.
Yeah, I really like it's like a frappe sort of thing.
Oh, not had that either.
You got to try some more stuff, Yaffee.
I really do. See, the problem is Steffi goes to Costco when I'm at work because it's not as busy if you go during the week, like at 9 a.m.
Right, yeah.
If you go on a Sunday in the afternoon, it's just completely packed. So I don't get to go as much for that reason.
Okay.
All right, what's number 4?
Number 4, speaking of trying things, Oreo has announced a Firecracker Pop Oreo, which will feature blue raspberry, lemon, and cherry flavored cream between 2 golden cookies.
I'd try it. Probably not bad. So it has, wait a minute, it was, say the flavors again in the cream?
Blue raspberry, lemon, and cherry.
Yeah. I think it sounds good. I'll try that. I like the golden Oreo sometimes too.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever thought about a Rocket Pop flavor as a cookie.
It's been a while since I had one of those popsicles too.
I don't remember the last time I did.
I couldn't tell you. It's been a long time, but you definitely feel a little patriotic.
Yeah, it'll be available starting May 4th, so Dale can get some for his birthday.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You can get some while you watch Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
May the 4th be with you. All right, what's number 3?
Number 3, speaking of Star Wars, to celebrate the Mandalorian and Grogu film coming up on May 22nd, Hasbro and Disney have launched a $600 animatronic Grogu that can blink, move, make sounds, features soft skin, lifelike hair, and makes more than 250 movements.
Wow. It's funny. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm like, there's no way I would ever buy that. $600.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet people will. There are some dedicated people out there that love them some Baby Yoda, which is what I still call him.
Yeah.
And
the people who can't afford it probably will.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, people who probably should not be buying something like that, yeah, they'll be first in line.
Right.
Man, $600. Jeez Louise.
It has 3 interactive modes. Explore mode, where it steps and responds to movement and sound. Display mode, where it cycles through different poses. And grab and go mode, which is ideal for conventions and costumes.
Well, yeah, so people will dress up as the Mandalorian probably.
Oh, yes.
And they'll take that with them. And it'll be part of their costume because cosplaying is still a big thing among maybe too many adults. So a lot of adults into that these days.
Maybe.
But I do want to see the movie. I'll see the movie. I liked the show. I know some people didn't like the 3rd season and they think the movie's not going to be great, but I'll still go see it.
Oh, I'll definitely go see it. It even includes an accessory that's a cookie that shakes when Grogu performs the Force move, and a charge accessory that activates lights, sounds, and prompts a Grogu response.
I think people will buy it. I will just watch other people buy it on YouTube. That'll be the extent of it for me, probably. But all right, what's number 2?
Number 2 today, Kit Kat has made a bag that you can put your phone into that looks like a Kit Kat wrapper that blocks signal for smartphones.
Oh, yeah? Interesting.
Yeah, so it's the taking a break physical representation.
I was trying to think. I'm sitting here. I'm like, why Kit Kat? Like, why is that the thing? But taking a break. I get it now.
Estimated 1-year lifespan and can be separated for recycling after its use.
And you're a big fan of Kit Kats. If I
love
remember
Kit Kats.
correctly.
Yes.
So would you get this?
Honestly,
You need a break?
I think it would be good for me.
Are you addicted? You're a little addicted to your phone?
A little
Be
bit.
honest.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. I think everyone on the planet is, but so
think-
you have a lot of company.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Especially like living on my own, it's very easy to just be on my phone all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. That's true. My wife is addicted right now because, she spends a lot of time feeding the new baby.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there. You're going to be on your phone. It's just the way it is. All right. What is number 1?
Number 1, Queen Camilla has gifted a Rue doll from Winnie the Pooh to the New York Public Library, completing their Winnie the Pooh collection.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know there was a Winnie the Pooh collection there, but
yes,
nice.
They have a display of the original toys that belonged to the real life Christopher Robin. And
okay. So the legit Rudolph. Okay.
Right. And in
the OG.
Well, it is a replica.
Oh.
But the original was lost in an apple orchard during the 1930s.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
And she took time to read Winnie the Pooh to children that were present at the New York Public Library that day.
Cool. Wow, I had no idea that was there. Indiana Jones would be happy that it's in a museum.
Oh, absolutely.
Basically what it is. But yeah, the original toys are at the library there.
Yeah,
That's
awesome. It's about to be the 100th birthday of Winnie the Pooh because it was first published October 14th, 1926.
Wow. And it's fun. I was never a big Winnie the Pooh guy. Never had a lot of Winnie the Pooh stuff. I liked Eeyore just because,
My mom really likes Eeyore.
He's funny. Who doesn't like Eeyore? I'm Eeyore. But okay, there you go. Well, Walker, a special edition of What's Trending wrapped up today. I appreciate it, Walker. Good job.
Thank you.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour instead, we're going to speak with former Alabama Republican Party Chairman John Wall, and I'll talk more about the redistricting bonanza. That's what I've decided to call it. We'll get to that next on the Yaffee program.
The Yaffee program.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WBNN. It is your woke detox center, your rehab. If you deal with a lot of leftist nonsense in your daily life, you listen to me, you feel better. So yes, we've been talking a lot about the Supreme Court ruling that gets rid of racial gerrymandering. And I remember at the time, I told Democrats, especially in Alabama, you're going to push your luck. Because the fact is, you look at the map that was originally suggested after the census. Pretty basic map. I mean, you look at some other states, including Democrat states, and how they've gerrymandered, not even just for race, but just gerrymandering in general. Alabama was not doing anything that extreme. But leftist activists, they got cocky, and they had some victories. They got another Democrat in there for a bit. But now this has gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and you're going to get what you deserve because we're already hearing calls, not just in Alabama, but across the country, to change these maps. Now, I do like how the Wall Street Journal editorial board put it. They said, "Hear the critics tell it. The Supreme Court on Wednesday gutted the 1965 Voting Rights Act and made it harder for racial minorities to vote. It did no such thing," which is what they say here. A 6-3 majority took a large step toward ending the partisan abuse of race to carve up congressional districts in a way that violates the Constitution. The Voting Rights Act still protects voting rights, and Section 2 can still enforce the law against attempts to restrict black voting with poll taxes and other obstacles. But the court struck down the distortion of the Voting Rights Act to use race to draw congressional districts in ways that amount to proportional representation. It's a much-needed ruling, even if the court's reasoning was more complicated than it needed to be. So, to put it plainly, the left-wing activists were redistricting to help their party, the Democrat Party. They wanted to find a way to get more Democrat people in Congress, Democrat members. So they were using race, screaming racism, took it to the courts, and too many judges went along when they shouldn't have. It says here, partisans have increasingly filed lawsuits under Section 2 to force states to redraw maps with more majority-minority districts. That's what happened in Louisiana. I'm going to skip down here a little bit. The court majority says the new map is an illegal use of race. Justice Samuel Alito's majority opinion gives a detailed history of Section 2 and a tour of the court's messy racial gerrymander jurisprudence. He stresses the general rule that the Constitution almost never permits the federal government or a state to discriminate on the basis of race except to remedy specific instances of past discrimination. But as Justice Alito notes, much has changed since Jim Crow. The VRA stamped out discriminatory election practices. Black voters now participate in elections at similar rates as the rest of the electorate, even turning out at higher rates than white voters in 2 of the 5 most recent presidential elections nationwide and in Louisiana. So this whole idea that you had to racially gerrymander to get them to show up in elections was absurd. But we all know, like I said, what was really going on here. The left-wing activists knew that if they screamed racism in the courts, they could get more Democrat seats in Congress. That's it. I mean, that's the core. That is the base. There is nothing else going on here. They played the game. It worked for a while, and the game is over. By the way, I know President Trump commented on this yesterday when he was asked about the case. Go ahead if you can, Walker. Play Trump cut 1 for me. This was his comment.
Some states don't need to redraw, and some do. I mean, I know what the concept of the ruling, I just haven't seen the result. Yeah, I would say generally I would think that they would want to do it. Some are greatly helped, and some, it didn't make much difference.
All right, so there you go. We'll see if that happens. The Wall Street Journal here says the Voting Rights Act was a landmark of American liberty that helped to break Jim Crow. But the storied purpose has been twisted over the years by both parties to justify the use of race to gerrymander. The justices are restoring the VRA's original purpose, which they are right on that. We're going to talk more about this with John Wall. He's going to join me. He wants us to immediately change the map here in Alabama. There are some issues standing in the way of that, but he has a lot of company in wanting to do that. So you can let me know what you think on our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. Back here in just a moment on the Yaffee program.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. Of course, we're here once again, News Talk 770 AM 92.5.
Hey there, I'm Paula Pan. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible.
Do not ever worry about your salary. You need enough to make sure that you aren't in a bad financial position. Once you have that, your salary becomes moot. What matters from that point forward, upside gains. Any type of ownership stake or ownership potential, that's the money.
Remember, you can afford anything, just not everything. Afford anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
FM WVNN. You can also listen online, WVNN.com, your iHeartRadio app, your TuneIn Radio app, any of your smart devices, or the WVNN app. So we've been talking a lot about it today. This landmark Supreme Court ruling that puts the Voting Rights Act back to its original purpose and gets rid of this racial gerrymandering that Democrats have done to basically just get more Democrats elected. And joining me on the show right now is candidate for lieutenant governor, former Alabama Republican Party chairman John Wall. He says Alabama must be ready to call a special session on congressional maps following this ruling. John, thank you so much for coming on. John, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can. There you go. There you go. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Good to be on the show. And look, I think you just hit the head. You hit it dead on when you were saying, this is not about race. This is not about looking out for minorities. This is about Democrat control. It always has been. It always will be. The Democrats use, race as a tool, as a political weapon in their fight to hold control of the U.S. House. And that's what this has been about for years. It's what we're facing right now. And it's why I believe that Alabama has to be ready. And not just ready, but fighting for our equal treatment under the Constitution. And just like these Democrat states are redistricting, Alabama has to be ready to do it, not just ready, but willing to fight and make sure that we have the equal opportunity under the law.
Now, you say they have to be ready to do it. Will we, though? Governor Kay Ivey came out and said we're not in a position right now to do it, and that has to do with some other court cases that are in the works, but I think that could change pretty quickly. But what do you think?
Look, I think it has to. I mean, like I said, this, and obviously I am, the Trump endorsed candidate for lieutenant governor, and so I'm very in touch with what's happening in D.C. with making sure that Trump has the tools he needs to get his agenda done. And so I think this is far bigger than just Alabama. This is about the future of our country. This is about the conservative agenda, and we know these Democrat states are going to the mat. We just saw it with Virginia, where they're voting, potentially removing 3 Republican districts, 3 to 4 Republican districts in Virginia. And Alabama has to have that same intensity. We need our Republican leaders to have that same intensity, not to be willing to wait, but to push now to find a way for us to call that special session, redistrict, and make sure the people of Alabama are representing the values. Our members of Congress are representing the values of the people of Alabama.
Yeah, and you're not the only one calling for this. Mo Brooks, former congressman running for state house, has said it. Barry Moore, congressman running for the Senate, has said it. I saw Lieutenant Governor, the current Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, has said it. So it does seem like there is some pressure to get this done sooner rather than later.
No, look, absolutely. So currently there's an injunction from a lower court saying that Alabama cannot redistrict their lines until after the census of 2030. I think that injunction is unconstitutional. I think it's very clear with the Supreme Court ruling yesterday that there's a new system in place, and I think that Louisiana, other states have the opportunity to redraw, and there is no reason that Alabama should not ask for that injunction to be overturned, and we have the equal opportunities for other states. Like this all goes back to fairness. We know that constitutionally, states should be treated equally by the federal government. And right now, Alabama is not being treated equally. We're being treated unfairly, and the people of our state are being treated unfairly. And I think we need leaders. And look, this is one of the reasons I'm running for lieutenant governor, because I think we need leaders that are willing to go out there and be bold and fight back. Stand on the 10th Amendment, stand on the rule of law and the Constitution, and fight for the people of the state.
Speaking with John Wall, he is running for lieutenant governor. What would you say to those that, I believe Chuck Schumer has already said it, he's in a competition with Adam Schiff to be the slimiest member of the Senate, in my opinion, but Chuck Schumer has said that this is like Jim Crow, bringing back Jim Crow. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's remember why the Civil Rights Act was and the Voting Rights Act was passed in the first place. It's because of the Democrat Party and their abuse of the election system, keeping black voters from being able to go to the ballot box. So let's keep in mind why this law was created and who the perpetrators were. The Democrat Party has a very shaky history when it comes to racism. They're the ones who have abused the system. They look at people based on the color of their skin. While the Republican Party has been the party that stands for civil rights. We stand for equal protection under the law. We stand for people's right to be able to vote. And so I think the point here is the Republican Party has been the consistent party. We Republicans for years have said we want to stop looking at people based on the color of their skin, while Democrats continue to try to divide us. And that's what this battle is about. This is about Democrats, wanting to continue to use minorities, to use division as a political tool to continue to hold on to power and to get more power for themselves. And I think that's an abuse of the system. It also ignores the fact that there are thousands of Republican black voters in this state and across the country that the Democrat Party ignore. They want they want voters, they want the press, want everyone to ignore the fact that there are Republican minorities and they don't have a voice right now. I think they need to have a voice. They deserve a voice. And it's time that we break this stereotype and we say, push back on these guys and say, no, you're the one who are continuing racism by wanting to draw lines based on the color of people's skin. We want people to be looked at as individuals made in the image of God and don't care what the color of their skin is.
Speaking with John Wall, he's a candidate for lieutenant governor. We have a lot of other things to discuss as well. I know you talked about this recently, but you're pretty worried about a lot of the gambling interests. You have money in these super PACs that are being poured into elections in this state, and they're from outside sources.
Oh, look, absolutely. and this is common sense. It doesn't matter whether it's gambling, whether it's another issue. We have transparency laws for a reason. We put this in place so voters can know who is trying to influence our elections and what they're trying to do. And when you have millions of dollars pouring in from out-of-state special interest, out-of-state gaming interest, trying to affect the outcome of our elections, they should be held to the same accountability and the same reporting requirements that the rest of the PACs and special interest groups that are within Alabama are being held to. And state law requires it. I think this is an easy issue. No change is needed in law or anything. We just need to use the laws in place, hold people accountable, and actually require that transparency that the voters of Alabama deserve.
Now, a lot of this is because, there does seem to be a push to legalize gambling. It seems more and more people might be for it. What are your thoughts on that in a lottery, of course?
Look, this is a nuanced issue, right? Because there's so many different choices when you're talking about increased gaming. There's a lottery, there's increased casinos, there's who do you reward, right? There's so many different interests because so much money is at stake. You've got in-state, you've got out-of-state, you've got current gambling operations versus new, and so I think this debate so often gets lost in the fact that people look at who benefits. And what I want to get back to is looking at how do we benefit the people of Alabama? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones this should be about. Government should be serving them. This is not about making money for corporations or business entities. This is about serving the people of our state. And I think when you look at it through that context, gaming takes a very different look. And you ask the questions, all right, does bringing in a lot of out-of-state casino interest, does that benefit the people of Alabama? And I think the answer is no.
Speaking with Lieutenant Governor candidate John Wall, moving past that issue, one thing that the current Lieutenant Governor was really big on, I'm curious your thoughts on this, widen I-65. There's talk about building a train or something, and I'm thinking, instead of putting money towards a train somewhere, why don't we just widen I-65? Seems to be a lot of pushback on that, but what do you think about that issue? Is that a mantle maybe you'll take up if you become the next lieutenant governor?
100%. Look, anyone who has spent a lot of time on Interstate 65, traveling north and south in this state, knows that it needs to be widened. I have spent more time sitting in traffic on Interstate 65 than at home over the last few weeks.
I believe it.
I think that, yeah. And look, and it's not just Interstate 65. You've got I-65 in the Huntsville area. You've got the infrastructure around Huntsville, other parts of the state. It's time that we really did take care of our infrastructure. And I think this is something that gets overlooked a lot in government. Government has a responsibility to provide infrastructure for the people, but also if we're talking about job creation, infrastructure helps build a better economy. And so I think this is one of the areas of government that really does need to be solved. We've seen some poor leadership coming out of ALDOT, a lack of vision, especially when it comes to areas like Huntsville, or Athens, my hometown of Athens, right? I'm a North Alabama guy. I see this every day with the explosive growth we're having. We're not having the infrastructure we need to keep up with it. And that puts our businesses at a disadvantage. It causes trouble for our citizens. And I think we've got to get government back to the basics. And one of those basics is infrastructure, the road system, and making sure that we are adequately supplying the infrastructure needs of our communities. And we can 100% do better in Alabama.
Well, you say we can do better, but where does the issue is money, right? Where do we get the money?
Look, I think it's more than just money. So government is one of those things where sometimes you throwing more money at something doesn't necessarily make it better. I'm going to give you an example. ALDOT right now, if I never see another billboard or TV commercial from ALDOT telling me to buckle up or follow this law or that law, I would rather that money go to roads. I'd rather see that in pavement. There is absolutely waste in government that can be focused back to where it needs to be. And I'm a big supporter of starting something like an Alabama Doge, where we look at this and we make sure that every single agency is using its money to the best and most effective, in the best and most effective ways. So there's another area is, some money is siphoned off of infrastructure. It's taken away from the road funds and used in other areas. I think 100% of gas taxes should be used on roads. That's why citizens are paying gas taxes. That's what they expect, and that's what they deserve. So there's ways to do it right now with the current system of making sure that we keep all money going from gas taxes and infrastructure charges or fees that go towards infrastructure. And then we clean up a little bit of waste in government and throw that money towards our infrastructure as well.
John Wall, he is a candidate for lieutenant governor, former Alabama Republican Party chairman, and the current head of the Alabama Library Public Service Board. Really appreciate you coming on, John. As always, we'll talk to you again in the future.
No, it's good to be on the show.
All right, there you go. If you want to react, I'm always asking for a reaction here. You can. We have our Yaffee text line. As I mentioned, I'm just branding everything with my name. I mean, Trump does it, so I can do it for my show. The Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. We'll be back with the Yaffee program rewind in just a moment. Stay with
You're
us.
listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. We're back, of course, here on the Yaffee program. I am Alabama's voice of reason, Huntsville's conservative conscience. Glad you have joined the show today. Appreciate you, as always. Now let's end the show like we usually do. We have the Yaffee program rewind. All right, that time of the show where I remind you, if you missed any of it live, well, the podcast is up on the website, WVNN.com, or subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio app, iHeartRadio, and the WVNN app. So the big topic of the day, started the show talking about it, of course, redistricting, where, in January I wrote a piece how Democrats are going to get what they deserved here. For years, they've just been going to the courts, screaming, racist, racist, getting courts to force states to racially gerrymander. Why? To get more Democrat seats. That's all it is. It's not about minority representation or something. It was about getting more Democrats elected. And they were successful for a while, but eventually it was going to bite them in the butt, and that's coming. We had a pretty reasonable map after the last census, but they went to the courts, forced another Democrat seat, so fine, we're going to redraw it again, and it's going to be full Republican. That's what's going to happen. So they're going to get exactly what they deserve. So we talked a lot about that on the show today. We had John Wall on the show in the last segment. He is former Alabama Republican Party chairman, running for lieutenant governor as well. If you missed that interview, the podcast is up. If you missed the first segment of us talking about it, that podcast is up. I talked about it a little bit more because I played a cut of President Trump on this. Go ahead if you can, Walker. Play Trump cut 1 for me.
Some states don't need to redraw, and some do. I mean, I know what the concept of the rule, I just haven't seen the result. I would say generally I would think that they would want to do it. Some are greatly helped, and some, it didn't make much difference.
Well, the fact is this ruling brings the Voting Rights Act to its original purpose. So we talked a lot about that on the show. The podcast is up. I had the Alabama bullet points as well. One of the stories in the bullet points, and you get more details if you like the Yaffee Facebook page or follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. I talked about how Governor Kay Ivey right now stated that our state is currently not in a position to call a special session for redistricting. We're still waiting for some other court decisions on this, but many politicians say just do it now, challenge it in the courts later. So we'll have to see what happens there. So I had then the bullet points and more. Check that out. We spoke with candidate for Senate, Seth Burton. He's actually a native of North Alabama. He worked for the Navy for 30 years. He was helping drive submarines, nuclear submarines. So we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about Iran. We talked about the filibuster, the latest in the Senate, why he's deciding to run. And yes, he is an underdog. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. So we discussed that. And we also talked about Iran, or apparently the Ayatollah is still alive, I guess. He's putting out messages that they're not going to change. He wants to keep nukes. We're just going to do this over and over again. We're probably going to have to bomb them again. Keep saying that. I know some people don't want to admit it. Go ahead if you can, Walker. Play Trump Cut 2. This was Trump talking about the blockade. He thinks that's good enough.
The blockade is genius, okay? The blockade has been 100% foolproof. It shows how good our Navy is, I can tell you that. Nobody's going to play games.
All right, and Pete Hegseth as well talked about it. Play Secretary of War. He was talking in front of Congress yesterday, Pete Hegseth.
The $1.5 trillion budget will ensure the United States continues to maintain the world's most powerful and capable military as we grapple with a complex threat environment across multiple theaters. President Trump, unlike other presidents, has had the courage to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, and he's ironclad in that. For 2 months, this president has stared them down. He's going to get a better deal than anyone ever has and ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. I know the American people support that mission, despite your loose talk and words like quagmire.
All right, so Pete Hegseth, there you go. I hope he's right. Now we talked about that. We had What's Trending as well. We do that every day. Good job, Walker, doing What's Trending at a different time. So the podcast of that is up. Thanks to Walker for producing today. Thanks to you for listening. The Vince Show is coming up next. And yes, I will be back tomorrow at the same time. See you then.
The Yaffee Program.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk.
I'm Vince Colonnese, host of the Vince Podcast. I'm bringing you the truth beneath the headlines of all of the nation's top stories.
In-depth interviews.
We feature news-making interviews with the top guests on the whole planet. And I'll ask the questions you only dream of other interviewers asking.
And a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
It's a show with an obsessive focus on what's good for America. You are going to love Vince.
The Vince Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.